Hi, I'm Tara, and thank you for visiting my channel, Transforming with Tara. I talk about all things transformational in the realm of our body, mind, and spirit, and especially through the lens of the law of attraction as I understand it through my life experiences and observations. So, what I want to talk about today, which is inspired by a session that I just had with a client of mine, is the role our parts play. What are our parts and the role they play in how we are attracting what we're attracting in our lives? So, I came to learn about the parts through working with an internal family systems therapist for many years, and I consider her to be a teacher. I am not an internal family systems therapist myself. I am informed in my own life and how I do transformational guidance coaching with others by IFS because it really jived well with my observations of people that I had been making for about 20 years at the time when I started IFS therapy. I had already been a massage therapist for about 20 years. Massage therapists get to hear a lot about their clients. I have a very deep, intuitive ability to see to the core of what's going on with people, and I really can connect the dots. So when I was introduced to the internal family systems perspective, it really helped me to synthesize what was going on with why people were experiencing what they were experiencing in their lives, in their bodies, and in their outcomes. And so, talking a little bit about the parts, if you've never heard of what the parts are, your internal parts, you can think of them basically as your emotions, except for the parts kind of play out like an internal community or an internal family. And they each, as we find out when we get to know them, they each kind of have a personality. They all have intention, and they like to be seen, heard, and understood, like everybody. And it is really a case of as below, so above. When we get to know our parts and we create harmony within ourselves, we are more capable and able of creating harmony in our outer lives. So I'll give you an example of a part that I had discovered some time ago with my own therapist, so that you can get an idea of what a part might be like. This is the first part I discovered. I had this gripping sensation in the right side of my neck and shoulder, and a constant feeling of this shoulder coming forward. It was very, very protective, and all I knew is that I was carrying a lot of tension, a lot of anger, and without going into the extenuating circumstances of my life, that I was feeling very aggressive often and very defensive often. So when I went into the journey, I didn't intend to get to know this part. What I intended to get to know was a part that was relating to the situation in my life. And what was revealed to me was this part that resided kind of in my right neck and shoulder. And it appeared to me like some kind of almost monster-like creature with claws and fangs. And at first, it seemed almost like it wanted to hurt me. But then the more I was coached with my therapist to become curious about it, what I came to realize is that this part was a part that was there to defend me and to help me, almost in a way kind of like a bouncer or something. And so that feeling of my shoulder coming forward was almost like, because this part was ready to lash out, like punch or claw, So as I got to know this part, and this happened all in one session, as I got to know this part and what it meant for me, it really enabled me to create such a genuine and true love for that part and what it had been doing for me for so long, and what its intentions were so benevolent. As I find out that the parts always have benevolent intentions. So, long story short, is because I had done so much inner work already with spiritual teachers who really focused a lot on what I refer to as radical responsibility. That's my phrase. Radical responsibility, meaning knowing that I create everything in my life, and that it is all by way of the law of attraction. But that is such an ambiguous term. And often we mistake the law of attraction for the mere act of wanting something badly, or and therefore it should come, or writing down our intentions or goals and therefore it should come. But the law of attraction has to do with what our energetic signature is, like a puzzle piece. And I have talked about this in another video. So what our energetic signature is determined largely in part by our parts and how our parts are playing out in us. So when I had a part that was always ready to defend, it matched up with a part that was always ready to attack. And so my defending part also came off as an attacking part, and I lined up with opportunities in relationships that gave me something to attack and or defend against. And so as I worked with my parts and created a different relationship, aka a relationship with my parts, understanding their benevolent intention over time, the relationship that I had started to see the therapist for came into what I knew would happen if I changed. And that is to say that the relationship would inevitably change, leave, or die. I know that this is what happens when we adjust our energetic signature. The things we had been aligned with in our life either have to adjust to us. So if it's a person, the person has to change in step with us. Whether, and this isn't because we tell them, you need to change, blah, blah, blah. Like, who hasn't tried that, right? It works minimally, if at all. So they change because energetically, they still want to match up on a subconscious or conscious level. And so in order to match up, they have to change. So if one person changes, they have to change. Or if that's not their desire, either conscious or subconscious, or their destiny or their soul's journey, then they will not change, and the relationship will no longer be a fit, and it will move apart. And this could be romantic, this could be work, this could be types of people you find yourself interacting with. This could be, fill in the blank. This could be traffic situations. They will no longer occur, or occur less and less and less, or in extreme situations die, and I have seen this happen. So, and I remember I have talked about this in previous videos. So what's important to understand is that as we get to know our parts and we create new energetic signatures, the relationship with the parts needs to be maintained and nurtured. And so therefore, what's really important is that we need to nurture our relationship with our inner truest self, and possibly even our highest self, which is, in my way of understanding how I know my higher self, an entity that is not, it is not my soul. I am part of my higher self. My higher self isn't me. I am part of it. And from what I know from the communications I have had from divine and higher self exists in a layer between some kind of overarching divinity that we could refer to as God, and then higher self, and then our soul, and then our 3D being, our 3D body, human self. And so the higher inner self, the inner being self, is, you can think of when we are well aligned with our true self. It's like a mother duck leading her ducklings. The mother duck does not push them around. She is not calling after them. She just does what she knows is the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and the ducklings follow her in suit. When our parts are running the show, it is totally different. It is a situation of hijack, because they feel that we are not doing what we need to be doing for ourselves, so they take over. So you could imagine it would be as if you're driving a bus and there are, 30 passengers, these are your parts, 30 passengers who all have something to say in their backseat driving, and one or two of them get so passionate about how they think you should be driving that they come and take that wheel and they kick you out of the seat and may even tie you up in the back of the bus because they know better. That's how the parts will behave when they feel like we're not looking out for ourselves. So when we form a relationship with our parts, and then when we're centered in self, the parts, like the ducklings, feel safe to follow suit with our intention. Because when we develop an intention that is for our highest good, and ideally with mutual benefit to all, when the intention is for our highest good, and we seek a lifestyle of striving towards our highest good, knowing that we're not perfect, but we do our best when we seek it, and the parts know that we're seeking this, and every day we're doing what we need to do. We're sitting on the egg, we're doing what we need to do. The parts feel safe, they feel cared for, and they feel calm and at ease, and they follow the self. So we are self-led. And then we have different energetic signatures, and those energetic signatures can now, attract new or different outcomes than we had been attracting before. So becoming intentional with this process is where real magic begins. And as I had just said to a client who I just was working with earlier today, in her situation, this is a work situation, and many of my clients do come in with work situations. In her situation, her boss, she said, that she often feels like she is not good enough for her boss. Her boss is very, very critical. She feels very fragile and overwhelmed. And so understanding, kind of how parts work, right? And their parts that are parents to other parts and whatnot, and that there is this thing called the law of reflection, meaning we are reflecting people. We are attracting people to us who reflect to us what we are carrying inside of us. I suggested to her, that we find out, that we do this work, that we find out what part is the most prominent right now to learn about, that is enabling her to be in a situation with somebody with whom it feels increasingly uncomfortable to be with. And what is that person bringing as a gift to her to transmute within her own self. So we did the work, and she had a really amazing session and came to understand and know and transmute a relationship with a part, in her case was worry. And as she was leaving, what I suggested to her is, I said, now remember, your parts feel safe when you're in your true and steady and collected self. How do we get into our true and steady collected self? With good practices. These are the labors of love that we do to set ourselves up, that prepave us for our day, our life. So, for me, this is meditation and prayer and gratitude in the morning. And frankly, prayer and gratitude all day long, but certainly in the morning, before too much else happens, I'm going to sit, I'm going to meditate. Even if it doesn't seem like a good one, I know that my being is reading this as an act of love. I'm going to pray. I'm going to give thanks. And it gives me a head start. It not only sets up the day in a way that increases the likeliness for positive outcomes, but it also sets me up so that my parts feel safe. So should things happen that are trials, should I run into situations that are unappealing or difficult, at least I have fortified, right? And so remember how important it is at all times to fortify yourself with your good practices, and know that when we start to throw that intention, that line of intention out for something to occur in our lives, for some healing or for some understanding or for some better outcome, a relationship or financial, abundance or something like this, know that you must have an energetic alignment to that outcome. And sometimes, I know that spiritual bypassing is not favorably looked upon. There are some things you can bypass. Some things you can just go on a detour, and you don't have to go in. You don't have to figure it out. You can just say, I'm not doing that thing anymore. I'm going to do this other thing. I am going to feel this other way. I am not attracting that anymore. Done, kaput. We're done with that. I'm moving on. Maybe you can bypass, but a lot of things we can't. And this is where we need to do that work to create that loving relationship so that the soil is fertile for us to grow to sow new seeds and grow a new bountiful, nourishing crop of relationship and parts in us and then in our life. So I hope this makes some sense. I just make these videos when I'm inspired by something in life. And these are the premises on which by which I do my transformational coaching guidance work with people. And this is how I live my life. And I'm telling you right now, it is a beautiful way to experience life. So if you got something out of this, please do the things. You know what the things are. You give it a little like, you could subscribe, you could make a comment, you could share this, and I appreciate all of that. Thank you so much. Namaste.